Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, the Tuesday, April 15th edition of the Daily Pulse. I'm your host, Teddy Panos, and I'm flying solo here in the WellPoint Studios, empty guest host chair. And you know what that means, right? That means it's a Triggering Tuesday edition of the Daily Pulse, where I'll do my best to inform you, and whether that triggers you or actually gets you to realize something you didn't, well, we'll let you be the judge of that. But we'll try to keep it brief here today. As you can hear, my voice a little raspy. I'm struggling to get through, so we'll keep it as brief as possible. Not a lot to talk about either, but there are some interesting items that I wanted to share with you. First, let's thank our Daily Pulse sponsors. We start with Ray Booten, licensed realtor in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, certified appraiser in both states as well. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home, a business, or a commercial property, Ray Booten is your man, and you can find him easily enough just by going to the web, realestaterayBooten.com. That's realestaterayBooten.com. Thank you as well to our friends at WellPoint. WellPoint is the only health plan offering healthcare benefits exclusively to Massachusetts GIC members. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. And a reminder, we're about halfway through the open enrollment period here for Massachusetts GIC, folks who are covered under the Massachusetts GIC. So if you work for the state, a county, or a city or town, a municipality as they're known as, and you're not happy with the insurance company, take a peek at WellPoint. They've got a plan that's probably just right for you. If you are already with WellPoint, but your circumstances have changed, either you're going to be starting a new family in the new year or downsizing a family, your kids are growing and out of there, so you don't need to cover their asses anymore with your insurance money. This is your opportunity. You have until May 1st to make the switch and look into WellPoint. You'll find out why they are Massachusetts' leader in GIC insurance coverage. So thank you to WellPoint. Thank you to Ray. We got some other sponsors we'll thank as well. But let's get right to today's show. We told you it's April 15th. Raise your hand if you remember when April 15th was actually a big deal. And no, I don't mean because that was the day that the Titanic sunk off frigid North Atlantic waters. But yes, this day in history is the day that the Titanic went underwater. But April 15th is tax day. And it hit me this morning as I was listening to the radio on the way in, and it was referred to as tax day. And it's the first that I've heard about it in the recent days, weeks, or whatever. And it used to be a common refrain. Tax day was a big, big deal. So much so that deadline, that midnight deadline to get your taxes in the mail, used to actually lead to long lines at the post offices back before electronic filing, and which now I believe pretty much everybody does it. But I guess there's still some folks who wait till the last minute and get that income tax return into the mail with their payment calculator on what they owe. But I remember, so for 7 years, I worked at Channel 7 in Boston. They were located at 7 Bullfinch Place, the exact same location as a post office. And I'll never forget, April 15th was awesome because you'd leave. I used to be a sports producer there, and you'd do the 11 o'clock news, so we'd have to stay through the sportscast, which was almost always 11:25 or so towards the end of the sportscast. And then we'd have to stay a few extra minutes to record the quote-unquote morning sports. Tried to make it look like it was live, but it really wasn't. We were recording it at 11:35 or 11:40 p.m. But then, you pack up your stuff, you get downstairs, start heading to where my car was parked, and invariably you'd walk through just a line of people, probably hundreds on many occasions, just waiting to get into that post office location and have their tax return postmarked by the official date. And I guess the rule was, as long as you were in line by midnight on April 15th, you would get that postmark of April 15th, even if it took you till 12:30, 1 o'clock. I don't even know how long it took these poor people to get processed and get through there. But it was hysterical because the crowds were so big. I'm not just exaggerating. The TV news crews, obviously we did from Channel 7, but others would go to other post offices and record the event. And you'd almost get like a festive party atmosphere. There was like the hot dog cart was there. There was a guy selling hot dogs and Italian sausage and whatever. Every now and then you get somebody showing up with a guitar, entertaining them and playing some music out on the streets. The panhandlers would be there with their white buckets banging away on them as well. But it struck me this morning when driving on in, I heard today being referred to as April 15th, tax day, that just doesn't seem to be that big of a deal anymore. I guess that's a good thing, but right, you can file it electronically now. You don't have to go wait at a freaking post office at God knows what hour of the morning. I don't know what time those poor people got out of there. I'm walking by them at 11:45, 11:50, and I'm telling you, there was occasions where there was at least 100 people in that line waiting to get in there. Now it's simple, right? You file your taxes like I did probably somewhere in the middle of March electronically, and then you set it up so that today that automatic payment comes out of my checking account, and voila, I don't have to fret it. You know, the money still doesn't go out until April 15th. So it's, you know, maybe you got a couple of days afloat with that check, right? If you got it postmarked and the check was the 15th, well, maybe the IRS wouldn't clear it till the 18th or 20th or whatever the date. But just interesting to me that's a tradition that has gone by the wayside. Ultimately, I guess it's for the better, though, you know, any occasion where people can kind of gather and have some fun, grab a late night Italian sausage or hot dog and hear a little music, yeah, maybe we should at least try to do that on street corners just for fun. Not on tax day, though, hopefully with some better weather than you usually get on April 15th, although today is gorgeous out in the Mill City. Tuesday, also, as you know, from watching the Daily Pulse or following the city of Lowell and municipal government, is the day of the city council meeting tonight. Lowell's 11 representatives, along with the city administration and officials and residents who are concerned and interested in participating in the process, will gather at Lowell City Council chambers at 6:30 for tonight's meeting. It's kind of a boring meeting. That's why I promise I'm going to keep this Daily Pulse brief for you, because there's not a lot going on. Here's the agenda. This is the council motions on tonight's Lowell City Council agenda. 8 of them. That's it. And nothing there that I see overly controversial. A traffic thing from Councilor Mercier, traffic mitigation for Starbird Street, wherever the hell that is. It's from Councilor 𝐃𝐚𝐢𝐥𝐲. That annual Lowell Youth Baseball and Softball Parade that goes from through our downtown streets and over to the Tsongas Center. That's become a great annual tradition. Councilor Noon, this is the most interesting motion to me. Motion 5.4 is the one that makes me wonder, all right, what are we doing? Request the city manager have the proper department install speed bumps on heavy pedestrian foot traffic throughout the city. I assume the speed bumps aren't for the heavy pedestrian traffic, but rather for the vehicles going through those heavy pedestrian areas. But how many areas is that? And what are we talking about? School zones? So we're going to put speed bumps on school zones? Makes, some sense to protect our youngest people, but we used to have crossing guards and other mitigation measures out there, hopefully for that. Though, when I drop my kids off at the Hellenic in the mornings, I see some dum-dums kind of flying through that crosswalk. So I can get the sentiment, but what other heavy pedestrian areas would be? The Lowell High School is certainly one. The parks could be considered heavy pedestrian areas. Anywhere along Thorndike Street, Dutton Street, kids walking towards the high school in the morning or back home from the high school in the afternoon. We're going to put speed bumps all over the city? I mean, I'm not no criticism to Council Noon. This is a public safety measure. I get it. I get the intent. But isn't a better way to just really let's crack down on enforcement a little bit. Let's get back to punishing people who are speeding, especially in a school zone where you can't go more than 20 miles an hour, or a park zone, or wherever. If you crack down on enforcement, people eventually get the message and will stop speeding. Yes, you got to kind of do things with the streets, signage, lane markings, whatever, to kind of create some awareness so folks who are spacing don't go through. But ultimately, this is a public education campaign and an enforcement campaign. We got to get back to that. And quite frankly, if there are repeat speeding offenders, especially in high pedestrian or high traffic areas, how about we start pulling some freaking licenses? All my lefty friends out there who don't, we got to get back to walkability and bikeability and this and that. Well, you take someone's driver's license away and maybe, they start doing some of that. Some of the walking, some of the biking, some of the riding the commuter rails or whatever, and they take a bus and maybe they'll help save the planet while we're at it. But we really want to be putting speed bumps on roads everywhere. First of all, how are those speed bumps going to survive the snowplows? We can't have a flat road that doesn't end up getting destroyed with the snow, the salt, and all the ice and the weather conditions here in New England. Snow plows going over speed bumps. It just seems to me like that's, it's going to be a lot of money spent, dare I say, potentially wasted when there are other less costly avenues to do it. Maybe more, I don't want to, it's called speeding tickets revenue generating, but hey, if you can pay off the cost of the extra enforcement with those speeding tickets and get people to slow the bleep down, maybe in a few months, a few years or whatever, you can, not have to worry about that expense and also not have to worry about the expense of putting in speed bumps. I'm curious what, hopefully Councilor Noon explains it a little bit better tonight and how many locations he's talking about. But, once you put it in one heavy pedestrian area, well, why wouldn't you put it in all of them? And I'm going to guess that gets a little pricey. Councilor Noon also wants the city to see if there's any indication that they're going to get shortchanged by the federal funding issues, report concerning current and actual receipts relative to the city's account for speeding and traffic enforcement. And now he wants to see, how much money are we getting from this, or how much enforcement we're doing. That one I kind of goes hand in hand with 5.4. Breakdown of the 311 program since implementation by categories. Again, we just implemented that 311 reporting system, but this is like the second or third motion since the system has gone in, looking at it. Do we sync it with the schools? What kind of data are we getting? What are people using it for? I got a hunch this is going to become a major reporting tool for the city, and you're going to see it an awful lot more going forward in city council meetings. Last motion, Councilor Belanger wants to host a regional developer open house to highlight numerous development opportunities throughout the city, especially in our urban renewal areas, the JAM, HCID area, the MBTA overlay zone, LINK project, and then promote all the various economic development programs that the city offers, as well as a comprehensive marketing strategy for outreach. Good motion, sensible motion, not all of them good, good motions, well-intended, nothing overly controversial in there. Again, the one that, to me, that sticks out is the one that might be the most interesting is the one by Councilor Noon about the speed bumps, putting them all over the place. How many, where, etc. Yeah, we shall find out. But that's tonight's Lowell City Council meeting. You look at the rest of the agenda, again, there's really nothing there that is appears to be controversial, unless some of those national grid motions in there get the folks, rappelling down from the balcony to interrupt the meeting, as they did a subcommittee meeting a few years back. But we don't hear from those people so much anymore. I wonder where they have gone. Probably distracted by a whole bunch of things. Anyway, you're tuned into the Inside Lowell Daily Pulse, the Trigger 'em Tuesday edition of the Daily Pulse here on this April 15th. Got one more topic I want to talk about. One of my favorites, NGOs, non-government organizations, because something jumped out at me today that I didn't know when I was looking at a news story. First, let's thank our Daily Pulse sponsors, of course, Ray Booten, licensed realtor, Massachusetts and New Hampshire, certified appraiser. in both of those states as well. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home, a business, or a commercial property, Ray Boutin is your man. Find him online, realestaterayBoutin.com. Thank you as well to our friends at WellPoint. At WellPoint, your whole health is their whole point. Washington Savings Bank, banking that goes the extra mile. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. TMI Properties, quality and value at every price point. Find your perfect space with TMI. Mahoney Oil, providing warmth and protection to Greater Lowell and Southern New Hampshire since 1925. Do the quick math there, gang. 2025 minus 1925. It's 100 years. That's a century. Love them. Love those folks. Great folks. Still trying to get them in here. The Greater Lowell Community Foundation, improving the quality of life in Greater Lowell through strategic, impactful philanthropy. Francis C. Preventure Insurance, the agency Greater Lowell has trusted to insure its most valuable assets since 1982. And, of course, the Massachusetts Pirates, bringing all the hard-hitting action and excitement of arena football to the Mill City. Later on today, I'm going to talk to the Pirates' homegrown talent, Salapoli Jr., will be joining us for our Inside the Pirate podcast. Watch for that on all our Inside Lowell various formats, our YouTube channel, our website, and on Facebook, Twitter, etc. as well. All right, my last item today. Story that was inspired by Boston City Councilor, resigning in shame because she got caught taking bribes. Tanya Fernandez Anderson. I wanted to know a little bit more about this woman. So I did a quick little Google search and I stumbled across some info on her Wikipedia page. Now, we've all heard the story, right? She was an immigrant, came into the United States. She was the first practicing Muslim elected to the Boston City Council. But let me read you this entry. Tanya Fernandez Anderson, born January 4th, 1979, is a Cape Verdean-born American politician and nonprofit executive who was a member of the Boston City Council from the 7th District, a Democrat. Well, in Massachusetts, they're all Democrats, but boy, a lot of crooked Democrats taking bribes in Massachusetts, especially on that Boston City Council. Boston, you got a problem. She was elected in 2021 to succeed Kim Janney and represented Roxbury, Dorchester, and part of the South End. As I mentioned, first practicing Muslim elected to the City Council in December 2024. Just a few months ago, she was indicted and charged with 5 federal criminal offenses related to a kickback scheme involving the theft of taxpayer money. She agreed and pled guilty and will step down from the council in April of 2025. I believe her hearing is May 5th, if I'm not mistaken. But let's rewind to the part that jumped out at me and caught my eye. American politician and nonprofit executive. So I looked at what was the nonprofit she was a part of. And again, through the Google search, it was a nonprofit called Bowdoin Geneva Main Streets. And it's kind of a little mini chamber of commerce that had a bunch of businesses signed up for members. As their website states, it meant to help people, small businesses, the quote-unquote backbone of our community, to help them, grow, start, sustain themselves, get through the challenges that every small business faces in its infancy and then throughout the various stages. Running a small business, I don't want to say it sucks, but it's a life's work and not as rewarding as some people would think. Not many of them become giant businesses that become cash cows. Most people are just lucky to get by, pay the bills, and be able to raise their family from their small business. Yeah, beats other types of jobs, but I kept going through their website. I'm trying to find who are some of the people behind here. I wanted to see some mention of Tanya Fernandez Anderson. and it's very, very difficult to find out. I was able to find one reference to her collecting a salary. They've had a number of executive directors throughout the year making anywhere from 30 grand to 80 grand. I believe the current one makes about 80 grand. Again, in the world of nonprofits, that's not a lot. Six figures is very, very common. Upper six figures starts to get, well, maybe upper 100,000, 200,000 plus range starts to get common the bigger the NGO, nonprofit, becomes. Pause. That was one of my old radio throat clears as opposed to the one for the voice, which is a little raspy today. But nonprofit executive who went into government, and then again another nonprofit. Nonprofit is a government. NGO is a non-government organization that often sustains itself off government funding. And that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about, is how often those lines get blurred. These non-government organizations, they seem to be a feeder system for either for employment of people who become political activists, or in the case of Tanya Fernandez Anderson, actually become politicians. And it brought me back to the work going on in Washington, D.C., and some things that have been uncovered by DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and their shutting off and tracking of USAID, USAID. All billions upon billions of taxpayer dollars, probably through the years, trillions, that have been funneled out to organizations both in the United States and abroad to make the world, make our country, make our world a better place, ostensibly. But a lot of the work done by DOGE and Elon Musk has uncovered some really cozy relationships between these organizations and the people that are supposed to govern them. I call your attention to Sandra Whitehouse, the spouse of U.S. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island. And this is from an ethics complaint a letter sent by an organization to James Lankford, who's the chair of the Senate Select Committee on Ethics, and the vice chair, Senator Christopher Coons of Connecticut. I'm not sure where Lankford is from, but Whitehouse is the senator from Rhode Island. And he's been, if you follow the news ever since Inauguration Day on January 20th and Elon Musk and DOGE, one of the most vocal critics is Sheldon Whitehouse. Christopher Coons has been pretty vocal too, but you hear an awful, there's an organization that's uncovering a ton of what they claim is fraud, waste, and abuse. And rather than say, hey, can we do a little deeper dive and find out how much of it is corruption and how much of it is just, well, maybe not the most efficient way of spending the money, we just keep attacking the people who are uncovering these things, which is weird to me. Like, why are we shooting at the people who are uncovering potential fraud? We all love Senator Diana DiZoglio here in Massachusetts, don't you? Even my leftist friends, they all love her, right? Well, unless you're one of the leftists in the Senate or the House or in the governor's office, then you don't like her shining a light on your little scams. But we all love her. 72% of the people want her to audit the legislature, and they love the work that she's doing, uncovering other improper uses of your money, be it through the unemployment system, be it through the Department of Children and Families, be it through the MBTA or everywhere else. Everybody loves her. But we go nuts when somebody finds fraud in Washington, D.C. So did you ever wonder why that is? Well, let's go back to Sandra Whitehouse and the complaint. We'll go right to the middle. Facts. Senator Whitehouse's wife, Sandra Whitehouse, has worked for the advocacy group Ocean Conservancy since 2008. According to tax filings, Ocean Conservancy had paid Sandra Whitehouse through her consulting firm, Ocean Wonks, LLC, since 2017, and paid her directly prior to that. So a U.S. senator's wife is getting paid via money that U.S. senator is voting whether to appropriate. Here's what gets really interesting. Since 2008, Ocean Conservancy has been awarded 19 government grants worth $14.2 million. Nearly half of this money was given to that group in the fall of 2024 alone, all of which Senator Whitehouse is alleged to have directly voted for. In September of 2024, Ocean Conservancy received a $5.2 million federal grant. And then the thing goes on, and I cut it off from there, but how much else of this is going on? I can tell you there's a lot more of it going on. There are spouses of judges who are making rulings today, rulings involving immigration cases, rulings involving funding of USAID or other efforts that the Trump administration says are efforts to reform government. Enemies of the Trump administration say this is a direct assault on democracy and whatnot, and we're heading into a tyrant or whatever. And I'm not going to get into that battle right now, but if a U.S. senator's wife is getting funding through herself directly or through a firm that she's a head of, from a government that is where her husband serves as a senator, that's something wrong there, folks. There's something wrong there. And if judges who have kids, daughters, sons, or spouses who are also working for one of the other NGOs out there that is politically active on one side or another, wherever the case may be, you can find ties to both Republicans and Democrats. I don't know if you can find ties to Tea Partiers, but you can find ties to them if you look closely enough. And again, I'm not alleging corruption or anything intentionally bad, but there's a little problem there, right? Can a judge truly be impartial if their spouse is receiving funding from an administration that's now cutting it, and you're making a ruling about that administration? Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. Why does the pushback seem to be so heavy? Why is the return fire so heavy as we look into the funding of a lot of these organizations, and especially these NGOs? In the military, there's a saying, the return fire is always the most intense when you're above the target, right? That's where you ever play Risk or Stratego? You set up your defenses around your king or your generals and whatnot. Yeah, militaries do the same thing. They put their strongest defenses on the perimeter or closest to the target. And as the saying says, the return fire is always the most intense when you are hovering above that target. Is that why the return fire against these efforts to uncover government waste and fraud is so intense? All right. Why does it matter? Why did that matter to me? Well, a lot of folks ask Teddy, why do you always go after the NGOs in Lowell? Why are you always pointing out things about NGOs, non-government organizations? Two reasons. And this is where we tie it back to Lowell by looking at the world around it, as we do here on the Daily Pulse. First of all, I look around at all the NGOs, and I'm not just picking on the ones in Lowell, but in Greater Lowell and Greater Lawrence, in Massachusetts, and across the United States of America. Hell, some of the international ones. How many of them have succeeded in their missions? How many? We've been doing a war on poverty since LBJ was president, 1960s. We're going on 60 plus years now of a war on poverty. Look around you. Is there less poverty than there was? Are we winning the war on poverty? Or are we creating more poverty? Look around you in Lowell. Look how many organizations there are whose mission, whose job it is to help the poor, feed the poor, house the poor, employ the poor, provide medicine to the poor. Have they accomplished their missions? Are they effective? Are their strategies effective? Are they using their funding in an optimal manner to to accomplish their goals? Or are they, in many cases, as I suspect, being run as little political action committees, PACs, PACs, who are employing community outreach coordinators, community engagement officers, all these nice little terms for the parade of people that you used to see heading up to the podium at the Lowell City Council meeting, which we talked about earlier. The agendas are getting a little bit shorter, A, because the councilors are filing fewer and fewer motions, but B, because this city council and this city administration in particular seem to be running the city as they're supposed to, by making the decisions themselves, by not being unduly influenced by these non-government organizations, which I don't think that was always the case. I think if you go back a few years, I think the NGOs were too active in helping city councilors and city administrations make decisions. They were exerting tremendous financial pressure, tremendous political pressure, and maybe some financial pressure, right? Donations to candidates from key figures of these organizations. I think that's changed in Lowell. I think the Golden administration, but in particular this council, there's a bunch of councilors who very early in their terms started pushing back when the homeless narrative was getting pounded down their throats each and every week. Some of these councilors started pushing back on the nonprofits, where I feel before they were all like, oh no, we're getting criticized by an NGO. No, we can't do that. We got to cave. We got to give them what they want, or else they'll make us look bad. And this council and this administration, as an extension of that, I feel has started to push back. And as a result, look at your council meetings. They're short. I can't remember the last time I've seen a parade of community engagement officers from some nonprofit or another coming up to lecture the council or the citizens of Lowell about how their city needs to be run. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. Because ultimately the government is elected by the people. Your city councilors are elected by the people, who then elect your city manager, who then appoints the administration. Ditto with your state reps and whoever. If you don't like something they're doing, well, you have a choice. You can go to the ballot box every 2 years or whatever period that is, and you can make that change. If they're not responsive to you, you have a vote, you have a voice. You don't have a voice with NGOs. Who are they accountable to? Are they solving their issues? Let's look at some of these things here. Or are they, in essence, places that employ people like Tanya Fernandez Anderson or Sandra Whitehouse or the myriad of others that are out there who are in many ways just political activists saying they want to help people? And I don't doubt that they want to help people. I don't doubt that they want to make a difference. I don't think anybody gets into the nonprofit world without wanting to make a difference, whether it's to promote businesses like Tanya Fernandez Anderson in Boston, or even Sandra Whitehouse, whatever she was trying to do with her Ocean Works LLC or her Ocean Conservancy. But you get into it and then you start to get money, right? You start to get grants. Where do those grants come from? Well, generally it's either very rich nonprofit organizations or foundations, the Cummings Foundation, the Parker Foundation. Those are the two biggies here in our area, but there are others. Or you get your funding from the United States government, which also helps fund some of these bigger nonprofit organizations. And you funnel the money out into communities. Again, good thing. It's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. But where's the accountability? Where's the reporting on success rates? It's not a bad thing to ask these folks, A, have you succeeded in your mission? Where is your mission improving? If you're not eradicating poverty or hunger or homelessness or anything else, all of them are interrelated, interconnected. But if you're not being successful, on those fronts, then what are you going to do differently? Are you just going to keep banging your head against the wall and expect a different result? Are you just going to keep funneling the money through from one executive director to another, down to a community engagement officer, over to a political action committee, over to a certain politician, whatever, as a donation from the employees who are getting this money? Let's ask for some accountability. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. Shining a light on these issues, which Diana �薇is trying to do, which Doge, Elon Musk, and others are trying to do, it's not a bad thing. They may be 100% wrong. Maybe Diana �薇was 100% wrong. There's nothing going on. There is nothing nefarious going on Beacon Hill and the legislative process and the governor's office and the attorney general's office. Maybe there's nothing going on. She might just be a crazy part Greek woman. It's the Greek blood in her. You don't mess with her. But maybe she's crazy. And maybe Elon Musk is just this evil, nefarious guy, the richest man in the world who just wants to steal your Social Security or your Medicaid or your hard-earned taxpayer dollars. Maybe he just doesn't have enough money and he just wants more and he wants to steal it from you. Or maybe they really believe in their mission. And maybe Diana �薇is trying to uncover your tax dollars being wasted, perhaps in a corrupt way. She's already uncovered a bunch of it, and you all love her. And maybe Elon Musk has done the same thing. Don't push back. Don't push back just for this. Ask for proof, but when you get that proof, say to yourself, okay, well, why is this wife of a U.S. senator getting taxpayer dollars? Isn't that kind of incorrect? Isn't that kind of straddling an ethics line that shouldn't be crossed or has been crossed? And why isn't the return fire around that as heavy as it is around a guy who's supposedly stealing your Social Security number so that he can enrich himself? Ask yourself that. That's why I keep an eye on these NGOs and have for a couple of years, because I noticed their influence in Lowell getting too big. I'm seeing proof now in Washington, D.C. of how the money was funneled to them and how it eventually, I'm seeing a little bit of how the system works. And I recognize that here in the Mill City. And it was a lot like what was happening 3, 4, 5 years ago in Lowell, when these organizations, I thought, had too much power, too much influence, and quite frankly, were too mouthy for places that weren't accomplishing their mission. Help the people. Leave the politics to the politicians, and the voters will take care of them. To their credit, I'm seeing a lot of changes in Lowell. I'm seeing some changes with the CBA, the Coalition for a Better Acre. I got to get Dan Rivera. Their new, I think he's got a new title now. It might be CEO or president. It may not be executive director. But he recently instituted some layoffs out of concerns about funding that's coming in. And he wants to make sure that they can stay true to their mission. I'd love to know where those layoffs came from. Not that I'm celebrating anybody's loss of a job, but if it's in the political activism side, the community engagement officers, bravo to Dan Rivera. If the politicking can not get funded and you can fund the building of affordable housing or housing of any kind, that's a good thing. Also, you're not seeing the CTI folks out there as much anymore either. Again, kudos to them. It just seems that Lowell's nonprofit sector, either they got it, they finally got it, either some a-hole on the radio or through a podcast called enough attention to them that they changed their minds, doubtful, or a city council with the backbone that had the interest of 120,000 residents instead of a couple of hundred, and a city administration that followed that city council's lead. They may be the reason why you're not seeing as much of this in the city of Lowell. All right. Have I triggered enough people out there? I know no one in the NGO world is going to like me, except when they reach out for a donation to one of their events, and which I'll gladly give, because we certainly love to do that as much as possible, whether it's through Inside Lowell or my family's small business, which, by the way, relies on a chamber of commerce to promote us. We don't need what is it, Bowdoin, Geneva, Main Streets? Doesn't Boston have a chamber of commerce? Dorchester, Jamaica Plain, don't they have chambers of commerce? Do they really need a Bowdoin, Geneva, Main Street? Headed by an executive director who eventually went on to become a Boston City Councilor and is now looking at Club Fed, little jail time. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for joining us tomorrow. Lowell City Councilor, or former Lowell City Councilor and Mayor Bill Samaras will join us. We'll recap what we think is going to be an uneventful city council meeting, but we'll talk about some other Lowell issues as well. On Thursday, Lowell School Superintendent Liam Skinner is going to join us. We're going to talk about an initiative that he launched from the moment he became the school superintendent, and we'll see where it is now and what its intent is. On Friday, Batch and Michaela, Mike Batchigalupo, Michaela Hondras McCarthy, a.k.a. Batch on the Hyphen, they will join us here for a big fun Friday. The Daily Pulse, it drops every day at noon on InsideLowell.com, on our YouTube channel, and anywhere else where you can find podcasts. We thank you for joining us. Till tomorrow, everybody, stay safe, enjoy this beautiful day. I'll catch you on the other side.